There's something about the 5th anniversary that feels heavier than the rest. Not because it's a big milestone like 10 or 20, but because by 5 years you're supposed to know each other. You've had time to settle in, to get past the novelty and learn each other's rhythms, their moods, their silences, their morning coffee orders without asking. By 5 years, the surprises are supposed to come in the form of spontaneous road trips or weird inside jokes, not what I got that night. I'd taken the whole day off work to prepare. I wanted it to be a surprise. I cleaned the apartment, folded every towel the way she likes, lit 2 candles in the dining room, and started cooking around 4. Her favorite garlic shrimp linguine with lemon zest, with that bottle of white wine we bought in Sonoma 3 years ago but never opened. I even ironed the blue shirt she once said I should wear more often, the one she claimed made me look like I had my life together. I was nervous, excited, like we were dating again. I kept checking the time, rearranging the silverware, turning the music up and down until it felt just right. Around 6:30, I heard her heels on the stairs. But something in my gut twisted the second I saw her. She looked incredible, but not in the way you dress for a husband. Her hair was curled tighter than usual, her makeup more dramatic, bolder lips, smoky eyes. She wore a dress I'd never seen before, black and silky, with a slit high up her thigh. She wore perfume too, the one she used to wear back when we first met, when we'd spend hours tangled in bedsheets and promises. She hadn't worn that scent in years. I smiled and gestured to the table. "Happy anniversary." She blinked like I'd caught her off guard. "Oh, Evan, you did all this?" "Well, yeah. 5 years, remember?" She looked at the table, then back at me, and something in her face shifted. A flicker of guilt? Surprise? I couldn't tell. "Babe, I told you my boss is throwing that party tonight. The private one for our division. You didn't say it was tonight." "I definitely mentioned it," she said quickly, brushing past me to grab her bag. "It's kind of mandatory." Then I noticed the faint red mark on her upper thigh as she adjusted her dress. It wasn't big, just a smudge of irritation, maybe the size of a thumbprint. But it wasn't the kind of mark you get from bumping into furniture. It looked recent. Skin-to-skin recent. "What happened there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She looked down, barely glanced. "Oh, coffee table corner. Total klutz move this morning. I meant to tell you." But she didn't linger. She gave me a quick peck on the cheek, distant, barely touching, and said, "Don't wait up. I love you," as she breezed out the door. I stood there alone for a long while. The pasta had cooled. The candles flickered against empty chairs. I poured 2 glasses of wine anyway, out of habit, and sat in silence while the music kept playing like nothing had gone wrong. At 9:13 p.m. I sent her a text. "How's the party?" No reply. At 10:45 I opened Instagram, mostly out of boredom. That's when I saw it. She had posted a story, a slow pan over a wine glass with city lights in the background. Just one hand in frame, resting casually beside the glass. Not her hand. Not mine. Darker skinned, a tattoo visible near the wrist, some geometric pattern I didn't recognize. Maybe a triangle or a wave. I stared at the screen for a long time, watching the loop replay again and again. My stomach dropped. I messaged her again. "Who's that?" "Seen." No response. By midnight, the silence had turned cold. I tried calling once, straight to voicemail. I opened and closed her story again, hoping maybe I'd imagined the hand, the setting, the obvious in asterisk Macy of it. But I hadn't. I knew what I saw. She came home the next morning, just after 7 a.m. I heard her keys in the lock while I was still sitting on the living room couch, the wine glasses untouched. She walked in wearing leggings and a hoodie, not hers. It was too big and the tag stuck out, revealing a men's brand. Her makeup was gone, hair disheveled, eyes bludge *T like she hadn't slept. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. "Hey," she said, setting her keys down carefully. "Sorry I didn't text back. I had way too much wine and crashed at Rachel's place. You know how I get." "Right," I said, my voice flat. "Rachel." She didn't ask about dinner. She didn't notice the cold pasta or the melted candles or the untouched wine glasses. She just walked past me and into the shower. I sat there for a long time, staring at the door she'd closed behind her. There was something final in the way it clicked shut. Something irreversible. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions. That it could have been a coworker. That maybe I was being paranoid. That I didn't know anything yet. But the thing is, I did. You can feel it when someone leaves you. Not physically, not even emotionally. But spiritually. Like their presence is just going through the motions while the real version of them, the one who laughed at your dumb jokes and kissed your neck in the mornings, is already living somewhere else. I didn't know the full story yet, but in that moment I knew this: she had left. Not just last night. Maybe not even last week. Maybe months ago. I'd just been too busy pretending to notice. Whatever she was now, whatever had happened behind that locked phone and that cropped Instagram story, I knew one thing for sure. She didn't come back the same. After she came home that morning and gave me her half-hearted excuse about crashing at Rachel's, I didn't push it. I said nothing while she showered. Nothing while she poured herself coffee like it was just another morning. But in the quiet, something had already changed. Not just between us, inside me. I didn't say anything because I didn't need to anymore. That night rewrote everything. Not just the obvious things like why she didn't come home on our anniversary, but the tiny moments, all the scraps of discomfort I had tucked away in mental drawers, each labeled not a big deal. All the doubts I'd gaslit myself out of. All the weird little changes that, on their own, seemed harmless. Together? They were a roadmap, and I had finally stopped pretending I was lost. For months, Joanna had been treating her phone like it was classified government property. It used to be nothing. She'd leave it on the kitchen counter, unlocked, casually scrolling through recipes or texting her sister. But lately? Always face down. Always in her pocket. Always with the screen brightness so low I had to squint just to see if it was ringing. And when it did, if it was past 7 p.m., she'd ignore the call or step into the hallway with her voice just low enough to keep me guessing. She said it was work. But who whispers about spreadsheets in the bathroom? I started thinking about the coffee. Joanna used to make it every morning without fail. It was kind of our thing. Whoever woke up first brewed a pot, no words needed. But about 6 months ago, she just stopped. At first, she said she was cutting back. Then it was, I don't like the way it makes me feel anymore. Fair enough. But on 3 separate mornings, I found used-to-go cups in the trash, fancy ones from that overpriced cafe 2 blocks down. The ones she swore were too bitter. Apparently not bitter enough to avoid altogether. I didn't ask. I just logged it. Her laptop had a new password too. So did her phone. She claimed it was for work security. IT's cracking down, she said, shrugging like it was no big deal. But that never stopped her before. She'd always shared everything: Spotify playlists, emails, even our joint calendar. Suddenly I couldn't even see what day she had off. When I joked about it, she smiled without meeting my eyes. It's just a work thing, babe. You trust me, right? I did. I wanted to. Then there was the hotel receipt. This was a month before our anniversary. I'd been looking for a receipt for my taxes in the junk drawer, and tucked beneath a stack of grocery coupons was a crisp piece of hotel stationery. A checkout slip from a boutique place in the city, the kind of spot we'd only stay in if we were celebrating something big. But we hadn't stayed there. Not together. It wasn't even in her name. There was a name printed beneath the folio number: L. Rowan. I'd never heard of them. I asked her about it, casually, holding the paper like it meant nothing. She looked at it for barely a second. Oh, that was from a work booking mix-up. My boss couldn't make the reservation in time, so I had to check in under his name. It was a lunch and learn seminar. I wasn't even there overnight. At the time, I let it go. Why wouldn't I? The explanation was oddly specific, which I mistook for honesty. But now, looking back, I realized something terrifying. She didn't even blink. She knew I'd ask. And she already had a story ready. What scared me most wasn't the possibility that she was cheating. It was the sudden understanding that she had rehearsed for it. That somewhere along the way, the woman I trusted had turned into someone who lied without flinching. After that night, the night of the party, the dress, the Instagram post with the unfamiliar hand, my brain started lining everything up like pins on a corkboard. Every little suspicion I had pushed aside suddenly snapped into place. The odd smiles when texting. The way she started staying late at work more often but always came home without stories about what she'd been doing. The way she flinched when I offered to pick her up like I was stepping on some invisible tripwire. She used to ask me to proofread her work presentations. Now she closed her laptop the second I walked into the room. She used to send me memes and random photos during the day. Now her texts were dry, practical, delayed, can you grab almond milk, and meeting ran late. Be home soon. Soon turned into hours. I started to wonder when I had become the outsider in my own relationship. When did I stop being the person she told everything to and become the guy she had to hide things from? One morning I tested something. I left early for work but doubled back after 15 minutes, claiming I'd forgotten my watch. I walked through the door quietly, expecting to catch her in pajamas with a toothbrush in her mouth. Instead, I found her already dressed, hair done, makeup flawless, phone in hand. She was sitting on the couch, smiling, whispering. The moment she heard the door, she jerked upright and ended the call so fast it might as well have been a fire drill. Evan. You scared me, she said, laughing nervously. I thought you already left. Forgot something, I said, forcing a smile. She didn't ask what. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how long I'd been living in someone else's story, how long she'd been rewriting our script behind my back while I showed up to every scene still thinking we were on the same page. It hit me then. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't overthinking. I was right. This wasn't one bad decision. This wasn't just some one-night slip. Joanna was a different person now. Not because she changed overnight, but because she had been changing slowly, methodically, right under my nose. And I'd let it happen. The lies weren't sloppy. They were precise. I thought of that mark on her thigh. The forgotten wine glass. The hotel receipt. The new perfume. The whispers. The new passwords. The late nights. The cold mornings. Individually, they were excuses. Together, they were a confession. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping cold coffee, and felt something loosen in my chest, not relief, not peace. Just a quiet kind of knowing. The kind that doesn't need proof anymore. I didn't know who Elle was, but I knew what they meant. 3 days after the party, I stopped pretending. No more giving her the benefit of the doubt. No more second-guessing myself or rationalizing the obvious. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since our anniversary. I was living in a house full of answers, pretending not to see the questions. And somewhere between the lies and the silence, I realized the truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was sitting right in front of me. I just had to look. That morning, she left early for yoga, or at least that's what she said. She wore those navy leggings with the mesh sides, a matching sports bra, and threw her mat in the back seat like she'd done it 100 times. She kissed me on the cheek, the same way you might greet a cousin at a barbecue, and said, "Back before 10. She was gone in 5 minutes. I waited 10 more before walking into her home office. I hadn't touched it in months. She kept it organized, borderline obsessive, with everything in neat labeled drawers. Marketing proposals, Q3 numbers, client decks. The one unlabeled box sat at the bottom of her bookshelf behind a stack of training manuals. It didn't match the others, no sticker, no company name, nothing polished. I pulled it out. Inside was a man's tie. It wasn't mine. I don't even wear ties anymore. This one was silk, expensive, deep berg *NY with tiny woven dots. Still knotted like it had been yanked off in a hurry and tossed into the box without much thought. I lifted it slowly. It smelled like cologne, not the kind you get at the Dr. store, but high-end. Smoky. Confident. Foreign. I sat there holding it for a while, and honestly, I wasn't even surprised. I wasn't angry yet. I was something colder. On her desk sat her work laptop. Locked, of course. She always made a point of saying her company monitored everything, which meant she wouldn't risk using it for anything personal. But that morning she'd made a mistake. She left her phone on my nightstand. I found it buzzing under one of my books, silent, screen flashing with a single text from a contact labeled simply, Elle. Elle? That dress should be illegal. You had me losing focus all night. When's our next escape? There was a picture beneath it. A blurry *T of red fabric bunched around a thigh. Hers. The same dress she wore the night of the work party. I didn't hesitate. I tapped into the photo gallery. She had locked nothing. I scrolled past the usual selfies, dog photos, group *TS from brunches. Then a folder labeled favorites. That's where I found it. A photo of her in an elevator, snapped at an angle like it wasn't meant for anyone but her. She was smiling, a genuine smile I hadn't seen in months. Her reflection in the mirrored wall showed her leaning into someone. His face was cropped out, but his hand was visible. Tattooed. Black ink, clean lines. A wave on the inside of his wrist, matching the one I saw in the Instagram story from our anniversary night. His hand was wrapped around her waist. And her eyes were closed. I stared at that image for so long I forgot I was even breathing. It was no longer suspicion. No more speculation. No more stringing together receipts and perfume and whispers. I was looking at it. I was holding it. The truth. I sat down on the edge of the bed, her phone in my hand, and realized something strange. The pain wasn't sharp. Not yet. It was dull, heavy, like an anchor being lowered slowly into my chest. Every ping from her phone sounded like a knock on a coffin. Elle again. Still thinking about last night. My hands haven't recovered. I put the phone down. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stared out the window at the backyard. It was overgrown now. She'd said we should hire a landscaper months ago. I told her I'd take care of it. But neither of us did. Just like the laundry we used to fold together. Just like our Sunday walks that stopped being our thing and became if we have time. We never had time. I went back upstairs and sat at her desk again. The tie was still in my hand. I wasn't sure why I took it. Maybe I needed to. Maybe I wanted something I could feel, something that wasn't digital, not a screen, not a voice note or a text message. I tucked it into the box and placed it by the door. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. But it wasn't Elle this time. It was Rachel, the same friend she claimed to have stayed with after the party. Rachel? Joe, everything okay? You never said what happened with Evan. I'm here if you need to talk. That one message shattered whatever illusion I had left. I'd been played. I'd let myself be played. Rachel had no idea what happened. No idea Joanna used her as an alibi. That wasn't just cheating. That was infrastructure. Planning. A whole scaffolding of deception built high enough to keep me in the dark and low enough to make me question my own instincts. I thought about sending myself the photos, forwarding the messages, printing the texts and mailing them to her office just to see what kind of lie she'd come up with next. But I didn't. I sat down at the dining table, tie in hand, and stared at it like it might speak. Like it might confess. The real betrayal wasn't just the physical, it was the fact that she never intended to come clean. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't conflicted. She was just careful. I don't know how long I sat there. But when she finally walked through the front door later that morning, yoga mat slung over her shoulder, hair tied back in a messy bun, she smiled like nothing had happened. Like everything was normal. And I knew in that moment, nothing ever would be again. After I found the photos, the texts, and the tie, I thought that was the worst of it. It wasn't. That was just the spark. What followed was the slow, merciless collapse of everything I thought I understood about her, about us, about the home we shared. It's one thing to find out someone's been lying. It's another to realize they've been constructing an entire life in the margins of your own. At first, it started with objects. Mundane things. I walked into her bedroom 2 nights later and just stood there. Really stood there. For months, I'd been sleeping in that room without noticing anything. But now, with the curtain pulled back, I couldn't unsee it. She had asked me maybe a year ago to rearrange the furniture. Said she wanted the bed closer to the window for more light. At the time, I thought nothing of it. We spent a Saturday morning pushing the dresser and rotating the rug, laughing about how bad we were at feng shui. But now, standing in that room alone, it hit me. She didn't rearrange the room for us. She moved it so the bed would face away from the hallway. From the door. From the mirror. From anything reflective. She changed the angles. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee the rest. There was a receipt tucked under the jewelry box. I pulled it out. It was from a boutique hotel 2 towns over. Not the same one as the L. Rowan receipt. This was from a place we'd never been, a place I'd never even heard her mention. And it wasn't just a one-night stay. It was a 2-day charge. Midweek. While I thought she was at a client workshop, I opened the top drawer of her nightstand. It used to be full of hand cream and old receipts. Now, there was a small notebook I didn't recognize, black leather cover, no branding. I opened it. Inside was a list written in someone else's handwriting. Not hers. It was a list of dates. Some were circled. Some had times. No context. Just days and hours spread across months. I flipped to the back. There was a note scribbled in the corner, barely legible. It shouldn't feel this good. I know it's wrong. I know we're lying. But when I'm with you, I forget that. No signature. No name. Just that. The handwriting wasn't mine. Wasn't hers. It was too tight, too angled. Whoever wrote it had been trying to convince themselves more than anyone else. That's when the realization settled into my bones. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't one affair. This was a system. A whole alternate reality running in parallel to mine, carefully hidden in drawers and folders and gaps between stories. And I, the man who thought he was a partner in all this, had just been an obstacle to navigate around. The note was folded beneath a small velvet pouch, the kind that holds jewelry. Inside was a necklace. Gold. Simple. I'd never seen it before. I opened her jewelry box, the one I'd given her for our 2nd anniversary, and compared. All the pieces I'd gifted her were still there. But this one? It didn't belong. Not to me. Not to us. I moved to her closet. I hadn't touched her side in years. But that day, I pulled every hanger forward. There were dresses I didn't recognize. One still had a tag on it, not from the usual department stores, but from a high-end boutique across town. She once told me she hated shopping there, too expensive, too snobby. And yet, here it was. A black lace dress, still unworn. Price tag still attached. Maybe she was waiting for a reason to wear it. Or maybe she already had. In the laundry basket was a men's t-shirt. Faded gray. Too large for her. Not mine. No cologne scent, no obvious branding, just fabric and silence. The kind that speaks louder than any confrontation. I took it all back to the dining table. The notebook. The receipt. The shirt. The pouch. The tie. I laid them out like exhibits in a trial. That night when she came home, she barely noticed at first. She said hi, kissed the air near my face, and walked toward the bedroom. Then she saw the table. And she stopped. Her expression didn't change. Not panic. Not surprise. Just stillness, like she had walked into a room she already knew was burning. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. We stood there in silence. Long enough that the shadows from the setting sun stretched across the floor. Long enough that I started to wonder if she'd ever say a word. When she finally did, it wasn't an apology. She picked up the notebook and said, "Where did you find this?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I can explain." Just that. She flipped through it absently, then set it back down. Picked up the t-shirt next, held it for a second, then folded it like we were just doing laundry. That's when I realized something I hadn't let myself believe. She was already gone. Not physically, but emotionally. Psychologically. She had been gone for a long time. And now that I had caught up, now that the truth was no longer deniable, she didn't feel the need to pretend. There was no desperation in her voice. No tears. Just observation. She looked at each item like a puzzle she had solved already. Like she was just seeing how many pieces I had managed to find. I said nothing. Because there was nothing left to ask. What could she tell me that would make it hurt less? That it was only one guy? That it didn't mean anything? That she still loved me? She sat down at the table across from me, folded her hands, and said, "Do you want to talk about it?" I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or throw the tie in her face and demand names, dates, reasons. But I didn't. Because in that moment I understood something so brutal it left me breathless. She had already moved on. She just hadn't packed yet. The woman sitting in front of me wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger wearing her face. Whatever connection we had, whatever trust, whatever future had already been amputated. I was just now feeling the phantom pain. She didn't cry. Didn't plead. Didn't explain. She just waited. Not to see if I'd forgive her. But to see how much I knew. The night I laid it all out, the tie, the t-shirt, the receipt, the necklace, the note, I didn't do it for drama. I wasn't looking to trap her or catch her off guard. I wasn't even angry the way I thought I'd be. I just wanted something. Something to puncture the silence. To get a real response. Not just another deflection, not another vague apology that said nothing and meant less. I thought maybe, just maybe, if she saw it all at once, physical proof that her secret life was no longer secret, it would force her to be honest. But when Joanna sat across from me, folding that stranger's t-shirt like it was a misplaced dish towel, I knew I wasn't going to get that. She didn't ask how I'd found anything. She didn't deny any of it. She just observed carefully, quietly, as if waiting for her cue in a play she'd already rehearsed. Finally, I broke the silence. "How long has it been going on?" Her eyes flicked up, met mine, then drifted back down to the items on the table. "Why does it matter?" she said, and those 4 words cracked something in me. "Because I spent the last year thinking I was going crazy," I said, louder than I intended. "Because I kept second-guessing myself while you were out doing whatever this is. And I want to know when you stopped choosing me." She sat back in the chair, arms folded, like she was considering whether to tell me the truth or just give me something that sounded close enough. "Evan," she said slowly, "if you're looking for a confession, I don't have one." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so far from what I expected. "You don't have a confession? After all this?" She nodded at the table. "You already have your answers. What difference does it make what I say?" "I want your words," I said. "Not pictures. Not receipts. I want to hear it from you." She took a long breath and looked out the window like she was bored. Like this was just another uncomfortable conversation she had to get through before bed. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she said finally. "It wasn't some master plot. It just became what it became." I stared at her. "With who?" She hesitated. "Does it help to know his name?" "Yes," I said flatly. "It does." She shook her head slowly. "Then I'm sorry. I'm not giving you that." My jaw tightened. "You owe me something." She met my eyes again. "I don't owe you what you want." Those words. They weren't said with cruelty. They weren't even said with guilt. They were just final. I stood up and paced the room, trying to keep the pieces of my temper from flying in every direction. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. I'd spent so long thinking about this moment. The confrontation, the big reveal, the emotional breakdown where she'd beg for forgiveness and I'd either accept it or walk away like a man with his dignity intact. But there was none of that. No tears, no groveling, no narrative twist. Just a woman who had already detached herself from the wreckage, watching it burn from a safe emotional distance. I stopped pacing, turned to face her again. "Why didn't you just leave me?" She blinked. That was the first time she looked even remotely caught off guard. "I don't know," she said after a long pause. "Maybe I thought I could live two lives. Maybe I thought I could manage both." "And how long did that work for you?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly, almost like she was considering it. "A while," she admitted. "Longer than it should have." That answer, that honesty, stung more than any lie would have. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. Not with rage, but with the sheer weight of it all. The years, the promises, the slow erosion of int asterisk Macy that I had blamed on stress, or work, or life just getting hard. She stood up then, like the conversation had reached its natural end. "Are we done?" she asked. I laughed bitterly. "You were done a long time ago." She looked at me, and for the first time that night, something flickered across her face. Not guilt, but something quieter. Maybe pity. Maybe relief. "I'm sorry for the way it happened," she said. "Truly. But I can't change it." "No," I said. "You can't. But you could have told me. You could have given me the decency of the truth before it got this far." She didn't respond. She didn't argue. She just walked past me, slow and deliberate, up the stairs to our bedroom. Not our bedroom anymore. When I heard the door close, I didn't follow her. I stood in the quiet house, surrounded by objects that used to mean something. Anniversary gifts, framed photos, travel souvenirs. All now tainted by the knowledge that while I had been trying to hold us together, she had already been building something new. Something secret. Something that didn't include me. I sat down on the couch and stared at the spot she had just occupied. And then, because I didn't know what else to do, I started packing. Not her things. Mine. Just a few boxes. Just enough to feel like I was taking some control back. In one went my books, my old journals, a few shirts I actually liked. In another went the photo of my parents, the one Joanna never wanted on display. My French press. My headphones. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't make noise. I just moved slowly, like I was trying not to wake someone, even though she was already awake. Just in a different part of the house, a different part of her life. By midnight, I had 2 full boxes and no idea where I was going. But I knew I couldn't stay. I slept on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling like it might offer answers. Didn't. At some point, I heard the creak of floorboards overhead, her soft footsteps walking across the room. I listened for hesitation. None. Just the sound of someone brushing their teeth, climbing into bed, and turning off the light. I stayed awake long after. The next morning, she came down the stairs wearing an old sweatshirt of mine. She poured herself coffee and said nothing about the boxes in the hallway. She didn't ask if I was leaving. She didn't ask what I was thinking. She just moved around the kitchen like I was another piece of furniture, one she'd already learned to navigate around. And I realized in that moment, she wasn't shocked. She wasn't scared. She was prepared. Not for a fight. Not for closure. But for the quiet unraveling of something she had already abandoned. I didn't announce that I was leaving. I just did. A week later, I signed a short-term lease on a small apartment at the edge of the city. No furniture, no decor, just space. I packed the essentials, books, clothes, my French press, and a photo of my childhood dog. I left Joanna a note on the counter that said, "Don't contact me." She didn't. 2 weeks passed. Then an envelope arrived, no return address, just my name in her handwriting. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "I barely recognized you in the silence you chose. Maybe I never knew you at all." I never responded. I tucked it in the back of a drawer, unopened since 3 months later, I realized I'd stopped counting the days. I woke up without heaviness, drank coffee without distraction, and let music play without memory. I didn't want revenge or reconciliation. I wanted stillness, and I had it. She never truly belonged to me. Maybe she never pretended as well as I thought. I didn't lose a partner. I lost a performance. And in the absence of her noise, I found something she never gave me, the quiet confidence of self-respect.